Hey guys, today we're going to attempt to make a doom buggy out of very basic materials that you may have laying around the house, and we're going to build this hopefully using kind of basic tools also. I want to make this so as many people as possible can try this. It should come out reasonably decent. So I'm going to show you around some of the stuff we have. We'll start with the Foolish Mortals. These are 2 HO scale model railroad figures. We're going to be using them basically to sit in the model along with kind of dictate some of the proportions of the parts that we're going to make. Got a piece of clear plastic here that's going to be the doom buggy sides. Over here we have a little light bulb from one of my other models, but what we're interested in is this black piece of wire that we're actually going to use for the safety bar in the front of the doom buggy. The sports bottle lid is going to be used for our base, and below that we have the pedestal, which that will obviously sit on the cap and then support the doom buggy. And here's the main guts of our project: 2 plastic spoons. Over here we got a piece of illustration board scrap that we're going to use for the seat and the floor of the doom buggy. Basic tools we're going to be using is I got a scrap of sandpaper. We need super glue. That's a must, so you got to be careful with that. A pair of scissors. I have nail clippers, but these have never been used on nails, so don't get worried. Basically, I used to cut plastic model parts off of trees before I got the tool above that. And we're basically going to use emery boards to do all of our sanding, and we'll need a permanent pen for some layout work, pencil, and possibly a ruler and some paper. So that covers basically the tools and the parts. Now let's start doing some more. Basically right here I got a piece of paper and I got a cross laid out, and the point of this is going to be to get some rough dimensions on our back of our doom buggy. The reason I'm laying it out this way is so I can draw my basic pattern. So that leads me to reference photos. Spent a lot of time on Google looking up this shape of this doom buggy. It's a pretty complex shape to get accurate, but I think, like I said, I think we'll be able to tell what this is in the at the end. So I have no reference up, but basically from what I remember, it kind of had a flatter top and then wraps around and then kind of goes in at the bottom. We're basically only going to worry about one side of this because we're basically going to fold it in half and then cut it out. That way it's the same on both sides. So we'll find the center line of the spoon and then basically lay this on and trace around it. Got a piece of cardboard under this paper, so these lines are not the greatest, but that's alright, we can fix that with the scissors. So I think that's a reasonable shape. We might want to make it not as deep. So do something like that. Alright, so now we move the figures, fold it in half, and then we're going to cut this guy out. Alright, so I think that's reasonable. Now we'll move on to the next part. Okay, now we're going to attempt to find the center line on this spoon. This one I've determined is going to be the back. I got some layout lines on here. I was checking some stuff before we started the video here. You notice you got this reinforcement right here which you could actually lay something on and draw your center line, but we'll try something else just for the video. Basically going to trace around the spoon basically to the same point. Draw it. I think if we cut this out on one side, we should be able to fold it up and match the other side. And this stuff doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to be doing a lot of sanding later. And I already tested the plastic with the nail clippers. You have to cut it rough. So we're going to just do something like this. I'm holding it right up to my light that I'm lighting the surface with so I can see the pencil line through the paper. So that appears to be decent. Now I could, there's many ways we can do this. But in case it's not perfect, I'm going to continue cutting around on the other side. Alright, so that's that. So we'll basically leave it folded. When we lay it on the spoon, you'll notice one thing. Because of the curved surface, it's not perfect, but we can cheat our way around that. So we take our pencil, lay the line, move it to the other side. We have the same issue with the actual shape of the spoon. Alright, so now you got this shape. Well, that doesn't tell us much. But what we can do is get a straight edge, like this scrap of paper. Basically you got a point here where it intersects in there. Now we got the center line. Now back to our other pattern, the original one for the Doombuggy. We'll fold that back up, use the center line. Here's where you gotta start determining how you want the look of your Doombuggy. You can slide your pattern up and down looking for a curve that you like. And then turn it to the side and see what you see. I think the bottom of the Doombuggy kind of has a flatter bottom. I think that looks pretty reasonable. So I'm going to attempt to transfer that. I think an easy way to do it, I apologize, this camera's right in front of my face. I can't really see what's going on. Take your permanent marker and trace around the perimeter. Try to fold the paper down to match the curve, and this doesn't have to be perfect because we can always sand it later or trim it if needed. Very hard to see. Okay, so that's the pattern laid, and you can see through the side it has a decent curve. On the reference that I've seen for the Doombuggy, it's got more of a curve up top. So if you want, you could set the pattern up, start it from like here up, and you get more of an overhang, which you may like. But I'm okay with this. What we're gonna do here is we're gonna cut this, and let me stress again, this is not what I would use if I wasn't making this video. We could use something like this, a utility knife. I wouldn't use that either, but we want to keep this with stuff you don't have to go out and buy. So the goal of this is to obviously trim it, but we're not going to try and trim it on the line. We're going to leave some slack. Excuse me, not slack, some extra material laying around. That way we can file it down. So we're going to take little pieces off at a time. Probably not going to show all of this because there's really no point, but you can see that I'm starting far away, and you can see if we get greedy and take too much off, it starts to bend the spoon, which is definitely not what we want. So it's going to take a while, but you get the idea how we're kind of creeping up on it. Like I said, this is so you don't have to go out and buy any special tools. Maybe it will be a mistake doing it this way. Alright guys, they roughed out the shape here. You can see where I got greedy on the edges, and especially here I got an actual cut in there that it's going to have to be sanded out. like I said, we want to get as reasonably close to the line, but don't get this close where basically you're cutting it off, because it'll be tough to match that with the sanding. You know, the bottom should be straight for the floor, which that'll be easy to do with the emery board. So I did a little more sanding on this shape here. I still got to fix this, but the reason why I sanded this is I need it flat so we can mark our line here for the seat on the inside of the spoon. So to make that a little easier, I measured this out and found that 3/4 stacked on top of each other with the pencil laying flat will give me the perfect line. So if I take my spoon, making sure to hold it flat on the bottom, I can get a nice reference line if I just move the spoon like this, because we're going to need to get a template of the inside of that curve, which will be a little bit difficult. Alright guys, I got my quarter stacked under here along with a scrap of illustration board on top. Now what we're going to do is basically try and transfer the curve on the inside onto the illustration board. If you have a compass, you know, that'll work well. This is just two pencils taped together. So let's attempt to do this. The stuff doesn't have to be perfect. We just want to get a rough idea here. Alright, so I trimmed this up. We're not going to worry about the width of the chair yet or the depth, but we're just going to get this ready because we're going to work on the front of the Doom Buggy next. So we'll put this stuff off to the side. Okay, so now we've basically laid out our center line on our second spoon for the front. You know, we did the same way the first one was done. Now I'm going to use the Doom Buggy back, and you can see that the center line on this is still faint, so we'll line it up with the center line on the new spoon. And I already put a mark here from when I tested this earlier, and then we're basically just going to trace around the existing part. But keep in mind, if the original is not symmetrical, once we basically flip it around for the car front, it's not going to be exact, so be prepared for that. Alright, so this will be my final shape for the front of my Doom Buggy. I'll trim it away like we did on the first one, trying to stay back off the line, leaving a little bit of plastic around, and we're probably going to be doing a lot of sanding. What I suspect I'll be doing is probably trimming this in along with the other side, but we're going to cut it out first and see how it mates up with the back. Guys, this is kind of funny. So here's where I got it cut to before the nail clippers broke. I don't have a set that I'm going to use for this, so I'm going to use some other tools off camera. But one thing I did notice was this plastic was much different than the first spoon. This one had the tendency to shatter more, so that required me to actually nibble away less material on each cut. So I'm going to finish cutting this up with the specialty tools, but you know, if this hadn't have broke, then we'd still be using it. Alright guys, so I finished trimming the front panel with these specialty scissors. These are actually designed for cutting radio controlled car bodies with, and you see they're curved. They're rather expensive, but they work very well, but I don't think too many people are going to have these on hand. So anyways, that's that. Like I said, I did cut this in on both sides a little bit when I matched it up to check it.